I completely forgot that we have yet another break for One Piece this week because of Golden Week. Oh my God, happy holidays for the Nippon people. Yeah, it's on one end, sad, very sad, because we need our fix since Oda is our Heisenberg and yeah, he gives us the good stuff, absolutely. But on the other hand, every time we do get that hit, woo, it's straight back to Cloud 9 because this man keeps on delivering the heat. And this chapter is no different. Allegedly. All right, these titles are an issue for damn sure, but there's more for this allegedly than just that, than what you would think, honestly. But I'm gonna say that later in the review. And of course, much love for my stream during my reaction for keeping me on the up and up about these spoiler heavy titles. Now, if you haven't seen that live stream, you know where to go on my Cole Requiem channel, #1, and of course on my twitch.tv channel as well for the post chapter reaction discussion with the tier 3 cats. Also, if you don't know, now you know, I've been posting regularly on the Kingu-san channel for the anime reaction content that is first done on my Patreon. Hell's Paradise, we've been getting to Heavenly Delusion, we've been getting to Demon Slayer, and so on and so forth. So all of those glorious links are where in the description box down below. Now, as per usual, we're gonna break down this chapter review to its main parts. #1, the pace and structure. #2, the character components of this chapter. And #3, the story progression components for this chapter. But before we go head first into the madness of 1081, we gotta give a brief word for today's excellent sponsor. And of course, today's sponsor is none other than the Surfshark VPN.
Lovely.
So I'm willing to guess that most of you lads and ladies watching this video are weebs.
Correct, sir.
It is what it is. We are who we are, our chest held high, and we show the world unabashedly our appreciation of the culture of the land of the rising sun. But in doing so, sometimes we do venture into very dark and dangerous places where individuals that mean us no good, for damn sure, they are going to try and ruin our days, our weeks, our months. If you wind up in these dark and dangerous places, whether they be rated M for mature or not, it's up to you. But the fact of the matter is that you're gonna want some protection when you do go to these places, and Surfshark VPN has your back. Not only does it have some damn good features, like the clean web feature that removes any ads, malware, or trackers that's gonna be there to ruin your day. And even though I love cookies, the fact of the matter is that I hate them online, but Surfshark VPN can easily handle cookies, making my online experience all the more better. Surfshark VPN is quite literally available on all your devices and also quite literally available all around the world. And one last thing too, if you don't know, now you know, a lot of my content is region gated. But you can easily gain access to mine and other region-gated content easily with Surfshark VPN by simply changing the region where you're located in, and then boom, just like that, you'll gain access to all those features that previously you could not gain access to. So go in the description box down below. Use code KOL, that is KOL, to get 83% off and 3 months free off of your purchase of Surfshark VPN. So on that note, thank you Surfshark VPN for being awesome. Once again, use code KOL, KOL, and now let's get back to the video at hand. Now we have the pace and chapter structure, and for this chapter there are a total of 5 parts. #1, we go back to Full Lead Island. Full Lead Island with the Gulp Galaxy Impact Fist aftermath. That's #1. #2 is a robust Kuzan flashback. #3 is back to real time on Full Lead Island. #4 is that we cut back to Winter Island and seeing what's going on with Law versus Blackbeard. Then #5 is on the final page of the chapter where there is a skip in time after Beppo's Sulong transformation, and the narration continues with on Winter Island. So the overall pace of this chapter I think is good. Nothing spectacular like the last 2 chapters, but still good nonetheless. The only challenge I can see folks having is at the end of the chapter, where when Beppo sends BB and his boys packing, and the narration says on Winter Island in the new world, there are 2 very thin panels that transition that moment to Beppo swimming away and Law telling him to go back for the crew. Those 2 small thin panels indicate a transition of fast forwarding time, meaning that some time has passed after Beppo sends Blackbeard and some of his boys packing. I can't believe I'm saying that sentence. Beppo sent Blackbeard, and some of his boys packing. That never in my wildest dreams where I thought I'd be saying that sentence. But that being said, those panels indicate that some time has passed. We don't know how much time has passed, but Beppo didn't magically de-transform and then wind up in the middle of the ocean water in a matter of 3 seconds. That did not happen. All we know is that some time has passed. We don't see what happens during that time frame. But anyway, like I said before, I do believe that this chapter for overall pace and structure was good. Now we have the character components for this chapter, and number 1, of course, Chujo. Now, we get a better sense of the Galaxy Impact size and power from the last chapter's ending. The buildings surrounding the town square are blown away, and most of the pirates were cleared from the center of the square, since there were very few pirates in the area where Garp's ship landed. And we do see many pirates in the air in these smaller panels as they get blown by the Galaxy Impact. Now, the pirates that were close to the Marines are knocked out and done. However, for all those that said it's the strongest attack in the series, there are others that were in the blast area and they were still conscious, albeit though they are all injured, including Queen the Plague's little cousin, a guy that has Queen the Plague's hairstyle, a Street Fighter character that has a big lump on his head. I still think the most important thing to gauge how powerful the attack is would be Avalo Pizarro's reaction as the Owl Fruit user. Unlike Pika, he can feel everything that happens on the island, and so far, there has not been a reaction by him. Now, could be a lack thereof, meaning that it's not warranted of a reaction, maybe, or we haven't gotten that yet. Not too sure. But it is clearly not an attack that would have wiped out the island off the map. Very, very far from, like many folks suspected weeks ago. Very far from. Though, like I said in the last review, this is, I think, a very large island. Many people assume that in One Piece, an island is just an island, but that could not be further from the truth. Many of them are comparable to our world's countries or even continents in size. Don't believe me? For example, in chapter 180, Vivi tells Usopp that the Shandor River that cuts through Alabasta is 30 miles or 50 kilometers wide. That's 2 Manhattans. 2 Island of Manhattans can fit in there. And when we get an aerial shot of Alabasta, you can see how thin that river looks compared to the rest of the country. Alabasta is just one location in the Grand Line, and I'd argue there's even bigger places in Alabasta on the Grand Line, like for example Wano Country. So regardless, I did do a video last Sunday, a premature stance on how powerful the Garp Galaxy Impact Fist could be. And at the moment, that is the best I can do. And I'm also gonna kind of throw this in there too, because I'm not too sure what exactly is going on here. But once Garp's ship lands in the town square, there's a fire that surrounds the area. Like it seems to manifest, come out of nowhere. There's a fire that's legitimately surrounding them. Now, maybe it's smoke from the debris, but the way it's drawn, it looks like fire. And I was thinking maybe Garp's attack set something off and started the fire. If Haki can make fire, then this could be a sign of that too. And this might be the doing of Vasco Shot, since in the last chapter he said the slaves couldn't escape if they burned the town down, and this could be his attempt of encircling the Marines that just landed in the middle of the town square. So I'm not too sure with the fire. It seems to be fire, but it could be smoke. But again, I'm just not too sure. I'm just kind of throwing it in there. So that's the first thing for Garp. Now, next thing here is this. Garp reiterates. He reiterates that he has lost his touch from his prime days. After all these years, I'm losing my edge, quote unquote, from the official Viz Media translation. This comment 1000% piggybacks off of what Garp said in the pre-time skip in chapter 438 about how he hated getting old and the cannonballs didn't fly half as fast as they used to in the official version of that chapter. There have been people contesting the idea that Garp is not weakened over the years, but that's over. That is done. Age has affected Garp, and that is undeniable. Many of the old cats in One Piece, like Rayleigh, Don Chinjao, and Whitebeard, have noted to their old age affecting their power, and Garp is no different. When you get older, you tend to get weaker, you tend to get slower. It is what it is. It is what it is. So enjoy the springtime of your youth as much as you can. Now, before Hibari gets frozen by Kuzan, there is a small panel of Garp's eye. This might be a sign that Garp saw the future before Kuzan attacks her. Not too sure. Then after this, here comes some more Garp heat. So Garp can break out of the same technique Kuzan used against Whitebeard in chapter 567, the ice ball technique using Haki. Kuzan noted back then against Whitebeard that vibrations can't be frozen. In the same vein, somewhat strong Haki could also break out of that technique. Law already explained in chapter 1063 that with intense enough Haki, you can negate devil fruit abilities. And this might be a similar case here with Garp. This is actually one of the main topics I talk about in a video about Garp and Shanks I did a few months ago. Check that video out when you can. Now after this, Garp does show off a high-speed movement technique to cover the distance between himself and Kuzan. This is most likely the Rokushiki, the 6 powers martial arts skill Shave, the same thing that Luffy uses when he goes into Gear 2nd. And the reason why it's most likely Shave is because Kobe knows Shave, and Kobe of course is Garp's protege. So I know that I think it's Christian of the Red Force podcast has been a big advocate of Garp being a 6 power martial arts master, and I know some of the tier 3 guys on Twitch are the same as well. And this is absolutely a step in the direction. Garp does show off a new technique called Blue Hole though, where Garp does grab someone with Haki, and he applies his Conqueror's Haki onto them, then he throws them down to the ground with extreme force. The term Blue Hole refers to marine sinkholes, deep depressions that are suddenly much deeper than the surrounding shallow waters. So this is unironically a very fitting technique for one of the heroes of the Marines, Garp Chujo. And then finally, lastly, Garp is confirmed to be a former mentor of Kuzan. We already had some hints of this, like let's say for example in chapter 0 for Strong World, or Kuzan mentioned that he owed Garp a debt, and that's why he didn't kill Luffy back then. But now it's confirmed that Kuzan was a former apprentice of Garp the Fist. And that is Garp's character section, but we're far from done. Again, hefty review here. Number 2 for character is going to be Prince Groose. Now, Groose does a move called Cumuloglorpus in relation to a cumulonimbus cloud. He makes a wave of clay to support the fall of Garp's ship. He makes it seemingly in a similar way to, let's say, Mr. Three's wax or Katakuri's mochi, where the way it's drawn and moves and so on and so forth, it seems to operate in a very similar manner. Number 2 for Groose is that he sees himself as a rival to Kobe. He thinks it sucks that Garp called him, Kobe, the future of the Navy, and he wants to sabotage that idea. So Groose does consider himself to be a rival of Kobe. Is he a Blackbeard style rival, or is he a Eustace Captain Kidd rival? We have to wait and see. After Groose is going to be Kujaku. So in this chapter, we get more confirmation of her speech patterns and mannerisms. She speaks in a very flirtatious but high-handed, sort of dominant manner, calling Groose a sheltered child, or even calling Garp a naughty boy. So even the text when she speaks is altered from the usual style, indicating a unique way of speaking, a unique speech pattern. So in the last chapter, when she calls those random pirates sweet young things with a heart, it's not because she's older than them in actual age, but more rather, that's just her speech pattern through her really domineering personality. After that is going to be Kuzan. Kuzan can chum it up with people like Blackbeard and his crew, despite knowing the atrocities they've committed and such, especially knowing that many of them are level 6 impelled down prisoners, at least former prisoners, who have done horrible, some of the worst things in, I think, human history. This could be a byproduct of the lazy justice that at least used to embody Kuzan when he was still a Marine, which probably still carries over even after he lost to Akainu at that point in time in the flashback. Number 2, the big reveal. Kuzan is confirmed to be the 10th Titanic captain of the Blackbeard Pirates. According to the flashback, he was swayed by the words of Teach, who explains to him the nature of pirates from his perspective. BB laid out some of his philosophy, and Kuzan is ultimately a free man who can do whatever he wants to do as long as there is an alignment of interest. Those are key words. As long as there is an alignment of interest. And ironically enough, the thing that Kuzan, you could argue, sees in Blackbeard in that flashback, you kind of get a glimpse of when he responds to Garp, saying how he always did like that Garp could say whatever's on his mind. And he loved that about Garp, which is why he wants to live his life the way he wants to. Arguably, through Kuzan, we are seeing a sort of yin and yang perspective on freedom, one being Blackbeard's viewpoint and another one being Garp's viewpoint. Just how in the world of One Piece, there are senses of justice, there are also senses of freedom. And there could be an internal conflict going on within Kuzan about this sense of freedom, or he has now dead set decided to be on the side of Blackbeard's sense of freedom, and Garp is trying to sway him back over to how he was before. Subordinates in this chapter even call Kuzan Captain Kuzan, or Kuzi. Hey, I like that name. Aokiji, Kuzan, Kuzi. I like Kuzi. But clearly Kuzi is fully accepted into the pirate fold. This is pretty surprising. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because for a minute now, for a good long minute, Kuzan has been noted to as someone that's kind of outside the true Blackbeard pirate fold. You can say in a way akin to like Apu, where Apu was an informant for the Beast Pirates, but wasn't actually really one of them, right? Burgess said that he couldn't trust Kuzan in chapter 720, and in chapter 699, Doflamingo asked Kuzan where he stood, what was he? Even in the Road to Laugh Tale, in chapter 1053.2, this is noted to as a hidden, empty person who is the 10th captain. But all along, it was Kuzan. This means ultimately that York's plan in chapter 1079 likely does not involve the Blackbeard pirates, and they are not coming for her. This also means that other theories like Caribou and Rouge and other candidates for that position are now out the window. So maybe I'm wrong on this one. Maybe I'm wrong. But it feels like Oda, when the post-time skip started, initially did not intend to make Kuzan the 10th Titanic captain of BB's crew. But during that 1 month break after chapter 1053, just how Yamato was clearly written out of the Straw Hat crew to expedite the remaining parts of the story, Kuzan could have been treated the same way. Kuzan, I think, wasn't going to be that guy, and somebody else was going to be that person, but that would require a lot more time to build this someone else that Oda had in mind to originally be the 10th Titanic captain, the hidden person. But since Kuzan is now officially the 10th captain of BB's crew, a lot of his characterization and character development is already done in the pre-time skip. Which means it's a lot less effort, it's quicker for the story to move forward of making Kuzan this person rather than constructing a whole new person to be the 10th captain of Blackbeard's crew. So that's what I think personally, right? At this point in time, I could be wrong, but something does, I think, honest to God, feel off with Kuzan being this person based on prior statements from other characters within the story itself. But that is it for character when it comes to Kuzi, aka Kuzan. Now, after Kuzan is going to be Blackbeard. He seems to be interested in eternal life. Since he asked Law the question about if his fruit could actually grant him that eternal life. And as far as I'm concerned, that's more emu plays by Blackbeard, but I'm going to save that for another future theory video. So be on the lookout for that Blackbeard theory video. After Blackbeard is going to be the final person for character, obviously, clearly, this was a shocker. Beppo has a confirmed Sulong form. In SBS 102, Oda did mention Beppo's Sulong form, and now we see the greatness. However, this might be a super Sulong form, since Beppo seems to be even larger than Inu and Neko when they use their Sulong forms. Blackbeard's height is officially 11 feet 3.5 inches tall, or 3.4 meters tall. Blackbeard is the size of Beppo's claw when he swipes him. Beppo is massive in Sulong form, and there might be some gigantification going on here with whatever Chopper gave Beppo off screen at some point, since Chopper did learn more about his own gigantification from Caesar Clown in chapter 1014. And the power is enough to press. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. Wow. Okay. The power of Beppo's Sulong form is enough to press Blackbeard and his boys for an undisclosed period of time before piecing. Deuces. And for Beppo, last part, like Sachi and Penguin, in chapter 1064, he is an excellent swimmer, and this seems to be what he picked up at the North Blue, where right now it seems like he's going to be swimming to another island, the same thing that Rayleigh did to swim through the Calm Belt to get to Luffy and Boy Hancock's location, and he's doing so in the hopes of saving Law. And remember, in SBS Volume 71, it was revealed that Beppo is the navigator for the Heart Pirates. So Beppo, right now best boy, can likely get to another island in short order given his navigation skills. And that is it. And that is it for the character section of this video. And now we have the story progression components for this chapter. Now, of course, like many other Sanji fanboys, yeah, I noticed the color cover, and the color cover is kind of wild. Assuming that this is not, let's say, a spelling error, and Oda did this intentionally with Sanji being the only one awake reading the cookbook, but that second O is replaced for a C. And of course, as some folks have noted, with the crown and of course the color of the conqueror. Yeah, okay. So obviously I would like this to be reality. However, keep it in the stack. More often than not, like 90% of the time, you cannot trust a color cover when it comes to foreshadowing in the story itself. Many other sub-fan groups of the franchise, like the ZKK Boys or the Resin Cats, they took some color cover material and went a bit too far with that one. At the end of the day, even though I want to say hip hip hooray, Sanji is getting it, when you take a step back, let's just assume that it was a misspelling for the time being. But keep it in the back of your mind, because this could be something important later on down the line. So that all being said, number one, Garp's ship touches down in the middle of the town square he cleared with the galaxy impact from the last chapter. Many pirates folded, but not all. Not all. There is also a blaze around them now, at least that's what it seems to look like, I would say. And this could be Garp's doing or somebody else's doing, but again, I'm not too sure. Now, according to Kobe, Tashigi is not a member of SWORD, which does co-sign what we saw in chapter 1061 with the title cards of the Marines at the G14 base, where Tashigi was not a SWORD member. But nonetheless, she's still here. This might mean that Smoker ordered Tashigi to go with Garp while he is somewhere else, probably on the way to Egghead Island. That's my guess here. But normally, again, non-SWORD members need clearance from higher ups to do X, Y, and Z and the other. Smoker probably gave Tashigi the order, go with Garp. After that, Hibari states that she couldn't remove the chain and ball from Kobe's leg no matter how hard she tried. And Kobe himself is also a pretty strong person. So this probably means that the chain and ball around Kobe's leg is made out of some unique metal material, or probably sea stone. I don't think that Kobe is a fruit user, but since he is a very high value prisoner, I can see them shackling him with a much tougher material than steel. Absolutely. After that, Hibari gets the Stone Cold Steve Kuzi treatment from Kuzan and is out of commission at the moment. If Hibari is really Akainu's daughter, based on her speech patterns apparently having a similar pattern to Akainu's speech patterns, then Kuzan petty as hell, yo. Savage. That is savage. You can't deny it. That is, you freeze because your dad is an asshole. Savage. All right, so after that, we see a flashback of the meeting between Kuzan and the Blackbeard Pirates. And from here, big thing. We learn that the Blackbeard Pirates knew the man with the burn scar existed. And according to Lafitte, he rides on an all-black ship, the Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean, duh. He rides an all-black ship, and when other ships try and go near that ship, gigantic vortexes, whirlpools, spawn in the water and swallow enemy ships. Not only that, but this person is assumed to have the last road poneglyph needed to get to Laugh Tale. Yeah. This does a lot. This low-key does a lot. Not even low-key, it's not even low-key at all. This does a lot for the story. And I'm gonna break it down in 4 ways. Number 1, This means that the last lode poneglyph is not located on Elbaf, but in theory, this person has it on their ship. This also means that the Blackbeard pirates do not have it either, which of course is now very self-evident but kind of important. But in terms of Elbaf though, this means that there has to be something else. There has to be something else that Elbaf has to offer that will be pivotal for the overall story of One Piece, since this is an absolutely pivotal destination for the Straw Hats. And I have theories about Elbaf coming at some point next week. Yes, absolutely. But this does change the game for Elbaf now that we have an understanding here that there is another sought option. That's number one. Number two, Kuzan does meme. Oh, who, me? He shows that he has that burned scar from Akainu. But in a subtle way, this implies that the Marines, the Navy, do not know who this person is. Kuzan, remember, he was in one of the highest seats in the organization, an admiral. But if he didn't know, then it's unlikely that any Marine would know. That's number two. Number three, this devil fruit having the ability to control water, whether directly or indirectly, it is a very dangerous thing. This person might be a hidden top tier in the same vein as potentially Emu or the Gorosei, since they have been seemingly tasked with guarding this lode poneglyph for so long. They literally have the potential to be a non-combatant or top 30 worthy. This person could, honest to God, be nasty as hell. And if they can make gigantic whirlpools at will, then they could also potentially make other crazy water-based phenomenon like the enormous worm eddy that we saw in chapter 1060, or let's say even a knock-up stream that the Strats took to go to Skypiea. And of course, this person could also be someone that's already among the strongest cats in the world of One Piece that we know of, but we haven't seen them do anything just yet. That's number three. Number four, though, we go even deeper. Absolutely. City of the Rain remarks how this could be a government individual who was tasked with guarding this lode poneglyph. Shiryu, being an ex-head jailer of Impel Down, might be privy to some big secrets that the world government would have. And some of those things he himself and Magellan could have personally handled if those things were kept in Impel Down. This also means that the world government fully recognized that the One Piece treasure, whatever it is, would completely alter the world's view of them / change the world to such a way that no one would want to follow their rule. But there is another way you can look at this. If this person does work for the WG, the world government, and they are at risk of being captured and losing their lode poneglyph, then the world government would send as many resources as possible because they would want to prevent their man from being defeated and somebody reaching Laugh Tale. This could lead to a war over the final lode poneglyph. The final war. The final war of the series could be over the final lode poneglyph to get to the One Piece treasure, which would mean that the final war would be before we get to Laugh Tale. Now, I have talked to Arter and other YouTubers about this idea. There is a video on my channel about this as well, where potentially the endgame timeline might be that the final war happens before the One Piece treasure is found, not after. Regardless, there are a lot of options. There are a lot of options, and I don't want to go too heavy. I have to save that for another video later this week. Again, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. But here's what I'll say for now, just for now. When it comes to the captain of the Black Pearl, Monkey D. Dragon and Scabber Gabon are not off the table. Monkey D. Dragon, and Scabber Gabon are not off the table. And that's big. That's big. But again, video later this week. Be on the lookout. After this, we're not there with story. After this, Kuzan is officially the final Titanic captain of the Blackbeard Pirates. Something that we tackled, of course, mostly in the character components of this chapter review, because I felt like it was better suited for that section. This makes Blackbeard's crew a truly scary force, since Kuzan's allegiances are not in question now, at least for the time being. He is a man fully on board with the Blackbeard Pirates. This is the same guy that fought against Sakazuki Akainu for 10 days and nights straight. Someone who is, in theory, just as good as Kizaru, Fujitora, and Green Bull. He is a former admiral and likely the number 2 of the Blackbeard Pirates. So this does bolster, absolutely, the strength and power of the Blackbeard pirate crew, because Kuzan is on board. He's not lurking the corner. As far as you can tell, he is ready to go. So that is big, but also it does add more validity to the words that he said in the last chapter about Sword. There is little reason to suggest now that he'd be lying about Sword in the previous chapter because, let's say, his past relationship with Garp. His current ties to Blackbeard seem to be right now more valuable than his past ties to Garp, at least for the time being. After this, a fight between Garp and Kuzan commences, and it looks like Garp has the edge at the moment. Then after this, we cut to Winter Island. And Winter Island, we see Law's submarine. The polar tank is destroyed. In the same vein as Kid's ship in 1079, Victoria, destroyed, and his crew is thoroughly defeated by the Blackbeard Pirates. Though the fight seemed to have taken a toll on Blackbeard, since he was wheezing in the panel next to Law's hat, meaning that off screen there was a back and forth like Squid Game tug of war style, but ultimately the Heart Pirates catch the L and Beppo swims away with Law to an unknown location. So you can see here how 1081 and 1079 parallel, where Luffy's quote rivals in the past saga, the Yonko saga, Law and Kid, are getting wiped out, blow away, by Luffy's new rivals, his main rivals, going into the One Piece treasure, Shanks and Blackbeard. As I've been saying for a minute now, we have to make way for the real rivals for the One Piece treasure themselves. Kid is not Sasuke or Bakugo. Law is not Todoroki or I don't want to say Rock Lee. Pre-time, yeah, when he was actually pretty good. Pre-time skip Rock Lee. No, Oda is making way. He's making way for those two guys plus Buggy, to slide on in to be the real adversaries for the One Piece treasure. However, I will note to this: Law's crew was defeated. Kid's crew was destroyed in 1079. That's what the narrator says. Kid's crew destroyed, Law's crew defeated. So in my mind, there is a possibility that Kid dies, like a 50-50. But for Law, it's more like a 90-10, meaning there's a 90% chance that Law does not die. Law was trying to find knowledge and learn more about the D clan. Kid was trying to be Pirate King. Law was more like Robin, and therefore you can keep him alive more so than someone like Kid, who was trying to be like Monkey Jesus. No. So ultimately speaking, we are making way for the real rivals, and Law is done. Alive for the time being, but done. So we'll see later on where Law ends up. But that is it when it comes to the story progression components for this chapter. So, overall, final thoughts for this long review of the chapter. Wow. This chapter I thought had, clearly there's so much going for this chapter on so many fronts, and it has so much weight for the story, not just in terms of Law being defeated by Blackbeard, but of course the Polar Tang taken out. Obviously the fact that Chopper can now make a drug that can turn him into Sulong. If there's gonna be a final war and Chopper has a bag full of Halloween candies that can turn all of these minks into Sulong at will, that is gonna be such a tremendous force and potentially stronger than usual Sulongs based on, I'm gonna theorize, some gigantification going on. That's nuts. That's nuts. But what we don't see is if Blackbeard has the rubbings of the road poneglyph. We don't see that. We know that Shanks got them from Kid's crew because they surrendered them, but we don't see that with Law's crew. Maybe he has them, but so far we can assume that he does not have them, which is very, very interesting. Does that mean that BB has to go and try and target somebody else if he does not have them? Even though the chapter has a lot going for it, I am questioning the overall story choices by Oda, because the Kuzan thing for me does seem quite odd. It seems quite counterintuitive to previous things that Oda had written in the story in arcs like Punk Hazard and Dressrosa. Honest to God. So even though Oda is cooking, I'm questioning some of the ingredients. I definitely am. Or at least the method in which Oda prepared these ingredients. I definitely am. So Garp is right now hype. Kuzan and Garp is going to be, I think, hopefully a good fight. I don't think he's done after one shot. Obviously, duh. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. And the flashback does give us a lot of lore bits and has the genuine potential to change the overall trajectory of the story. But keep in mind that it's Blackbeard's theory that the Poneglyphs held here. He could be wrong. He could be very, very wrong. It could actually be on Elbaf, but we have to wait and see how that plays out in the future. So, on that note, this chapter in my book is an 8 out of 10. Because again, on paper, I think it's really good. But I'm really questioning, in the grand scheme of things, some of these things that Oda is doing to, I would assume, expedite the story and not go for another 15 years, which makes sense. We could be sacrificing important bits here or there that were previously established. So if I ignore the macro and focus on the micro, then this chapter I would say is like an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. But when I factor in the macro, even though the content is still great, potentially not as great as it could be. But 8 out of 10 in my book is a great, so I will leave it at that for the time being.